This is Modern Mindset, the show that picks the brains of the world's leading minds to help you unlock yours. I'm your host, Adam Cox, and joining me today we have Amy Smith and Jodie Phillips from Apricot Learning Online. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Great to have you on air today. Now, it's been certainly a very strange period when it comes to learning and that kind of stuff. What have you seen over the last 18, 19 months in your industry?
Right, so I was going to say for us, our world kind of hasn't changed because we've been teaching our students as usual. However, for schools, I think for them, they were caught off guard, definitely with the having to deal with teaching their students off site and the insufficient tech in order for them to facilitate to do that. So I think for schools, especially, it's been really, really difficult.
I think also for safeguarding purposes, they didn't have eyes on, and they were finding it very difficult, not just in terms of the education, but also in terms of the child protection that they're responsible for.
I guess it's a whole new territory, isn't it? Because my children were using tablets, but the tablets weren't compatible with the app Teams. We had to have all these kind of different ways of accessing the right kind of things. Do you think just getting used to technology was the hardest part of online learning, or was it the amount of self-discipline that was required, or was it something else that just made it so difficult?
I think the hardest part was for the teachers to learn the tech. I think kids are amazing these days. They're brought up with the tech and they can find their way around things. But I think for parents and for teachers, it must have been really difficult to kind of learn a whole new aspect of learning and not only do that, but do it online with tech that they don't use on a day-to-day basis.
And tech that's not designed for that purpose. I know a lot of teachers, no fault to them, they were kind of stuck with Teams meetings and then emailing worksheets out. And while that might work for a very quick stopgap, it's not engaging interactive lessons online. And of course, they weren't prepared for that and didn't have the technology to facilitate it. And the compatibility issues, I think you're right. If you've got children on tablets or on Chromebooks or on laptops, Macs, PCs, it's all different and it's all got to merge together. So an integrated system is really what's required.
There was a lot of people kind of doing the best they could with what they have, including teachers, parents, and the children themselves. A bit of bootstrapping and stopgaps there. Do you think there will be a disconnect for those children with education needs once everyone's back in the classroom, like full time?
Yeah, I think we've seen that. I mean, the rise in anxiety of children and parents and even teachers is evident. Students have been enjoying smaller, more protected learning groups, and I think they felt a little bit more safe, a little bit more looked after in smaller groups. And while we don't really know their complete understanding of what's going on with the pandemic, what we do know is that they're frightened, and to be thrust back into the school environment with all of its distractions, the exhausting social protocols, they've been feeling very insecure and unprotected.
Yeah, it's certainly been a weird, uncertain time. I think uncertain and volatile is probably the best way of describing it. How seriously do you think the consequence of all that learning in isolation impacted the levels of learning and the impact on the success of those children?
I think that's really down to the teaching. Really, children are they're fairly malleable and resilient. They can bounce back from things. They can go with the flow a bit. What we've found is that in smaller groups online, progress is much swifter. Confidence and resilience are more easily advanced so long as you have the right staff expertise and commitment by that teaching staff. I think the relationships with teachers have been more personal, more equal. There's not the power structure that there is in a class of 30 where all eyes have to be on the teacher. And they've become more responsible for their own learning. I understand the question is about, how does isolation impact academic success? I think it really depends on what children are exposed to during that isolation. If they have really quality send teachers, then they can thrive. And that's why I think we're finding it that they have more anxiety going back into the whole school. But if they're not given that, if there's something more static, like online technology that doesn't have a teacher in front of them, or the teacher is relegated only to a Teams meeting and a worksheet, then yeah, I think that can have dire consequences.
And I also think that it's very prudent that it becomes very apparent about the ways that different students learn in different ways. So you get those that absolutely thrive off the online learning, and that is what suits them. But then you get the others that actually that their need and their requirement is to be in a school environment. That's the way that they learn, and that's the best that's the way that people are going to get the best out of that student.
Yeah, so a blended program is usually accepted as a really good, productive way forward, especially for children with special needs, mental and medical health needs.
Sure. And obviously, we've had a period where everyone suddenly had to learn how to do everything online. What does Apricot Learning Online do that perhaps the other platforms don't do? And how have you found this kind of period of everyone learning online?
Well, it's kind of normal for us because we've been doing it for 10 years. I think the most important things that we and possibly some other providers can do is, first of all, discover and fulfill the needs of the students. And our emphasis is always on teaching the whole child, using veteran classroom teachers, but teaching them a different style of teaching. Um, in the classroom, the teacher is the star of the show. In the online environment, the students have to be the star of the show. So the teachers have to create an environment and an arena in which the children are actors, the principal actors. Um, I think the content and the pacing of lessons is tailored by us. SMSC is embedded in all of our schemes of work. These are things that everyone needs to look for when they're looking at online providers. How engaging, how interactive are the lessons? What, do you have a broad range of subjects? Do you teach to all exam boards? Is your reporting sufficient for Ofsted evidence? I mean, these are all things that we can offer, and there may be some others that offer this, but I think we're unique, especially in our reporting, and the fact that we will attend student hearings and actually go to schools when they're being Ofsted inspected. These are all things that should be looked for when you're looking for a quality, trauma-informed SEND online provision.
And you need to ensure that all of them have the robust child protection procedures, because teaching via Zoom and others such like it that isn't it's not necessarily the safeguarding of the child. You just need to make sure that that there are strong safeguarding procedures in place.
Yes, especially when, if somebody is late or if somebody leaves a lesson a little bit early, there needs to be procedures in place for the company or the teachers or the HQ to check with parents or the school or the responsible adult to make sure that that child is still okay, even though they're not in the lesson.
Mm. And have you found that people generally have gone all the way back to kind of face-to-face learning in schools, or because of this period of online learning, is it now this kind of hybrid learning where it's a combination of learning online and learning in classrooms? Is that just the way the future looks like?
I think that the government had some leeway with regards to online learning throughout the pandemic, but now we're coming out the other end. They want students back in school, full time, face to face. However, um, through various reasons, that and for some children that's just not possible. So actually, going forward, they need to start looking at a broader way to educate children.
Absolutely. And if someone wanted to learn more about this, find more information about Apricot Learning Online, where's the best place for them to find that information?
Oh, well, our website is Legion. We've tried to make it easy to find, but www.apricotlearningonline.co.uk, or, our phone number and our emails are on there, but you can email us directly, Jodie at apricotlearningonline.co.uk or Amy at